Dear learners, I hope all of you are fine. I am also fine with the grace of Almighty Lord. Dear learners, I hope all of you are in safe and sound because of COVID-19 is spreading rapidly, and for these reasons you should stay always in safe and sound, and you should follow also the rules of health. Dear learners, I hope all of you are following the rules of health and you are not going out. Dear learners, if you have emergency work to go out, please wear masks properly. And after returning home, then you wash yourself properly and wash your clothes with detergent. Dear learners, please don't neglect it. Try to avoid COVID-19. Dear learners, I hope always you are following your class. What we are giving or submitting through YouTube in our school Facebook. Dear learners, I hope always you are following the class and you are practicing this. Last day, I gave you a class on conditions and conditionals. Dear learners, today I will give you a class on clause. Do you know what is clause? Dear learners, I taught you in the class. The clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. What is clause? Clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. Dear learners, I hope you have understood it. So today I will discuss about the classifications of clause. Dear learners, you can see on the board that I have written about the clause. Dear learners, in the board, you can see on the board that a clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. Dear learners, if you have a clause, then you will have to find. You will get a finite verb and a subject. For example, so I'm going to give you an example on this. I have a cat that is white. There are two finite verbs. One is have, another is. So there are how many clauses there? There are two clauses. I have a cat is not a clause, and that is white, another clause. Dear learners, I hope you have understood about the clause. So if you find two finite verbs in a sentence, there are two clauses. If you find there are three finite verbs in a clause, so there are sentence, so there are three clauses. Dear learners, I will show you the classifications of clause on the board now. I hope it is clear to you. So what is clause? Clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. I have a cat that is white. Here, I have a cat is a clause, and another clause is that is finite verb. Sorry, that is white. Dear learner, there are two clauses in a sentence. So if you see here, I have a white cat, you can see only finite verb here. Have is only finite verb. So there is one clause. There is a clause, and I have a cat that is white is two clause. This is called simple sentence, and this is called complex sentence. If you have two finite clauses, one is principal clause, another is subordinate clause, then that will be complex sentence. Dear learners, now I will go to make you understand about the classifications of clause. Let's see about the classifications of clause. Clause is finally classified into three. Principal clause, that is called subordinate clause, coordinate clause. There are three types of clauses. Dear learners, you can see here the first one is principal clause. Sometimes it is called main clause. And it's also called independent clause. And it is sometimes called dependent clause. This is called subordinate clause or dependent clause. And here you can see here the principal clause and main clause and dependent clause. Especially in the subcontinent, we call these by these three names. Dear learners, you can see here there are mainly three kinds of clauses. Now I will make you understand what is principal clause. The principal clause is the clause which can express its meaning alone. It's called principal clause. For example, you can see here that I have a cat. So it can express its meaning alone. I have a cat. It can express its meaning alone, so it is called principal clause. And if I write here that is blue, that is blue, it can't express its meaning. So for this reason it is called subordinate clause. The clause which depends on another clause to express or clear its meaning is called dependent clause. Dear learners, I hope it is clear to you. That is, the clause which or that depend another clause to express its meaning clearly is called dependent clause. And the principal clause is a clause which can express its meaning alone or clear its meaning alone without depending another clause. It's called principal clause. And subordinate clause is the clause which cannot express its meaning alone without depending on another principal clause. So now I hope it is clear here. I have a cat is a principal clause because it can express its meaning alone. That is blue. So what is blue? We don't know. It is unknown. So it is called subordinate clause because it can't express its meaning alone. Dear learners, now we will learn about coordinative clause. Coordinative clause is specially two main clauses added with coordinative conjunctions such as and or but. Such as the man is honest. And is a coordinated conjunction, and I know him. Here you can see here there are two independent clauses added with coordinated conjunctions. So it is called coordinated clause. Dear learners, I hope it is clear to you, and if you practice this more from your book, it will be more clear. Dear learners, now we will go to the classifications of clause now. Already we have understood about the clause, about principal clause, subordinate clause, and coordinated clause. Dear learners, you know that these are mainly three types of clauses. Now you know that subordinate clause is classified into three. Again, subordinate clause is classified into three. Now I'm going to give you an example and want to discuss here. It's kind of a noun clause or nominal. We can see a noun clause or nominal clause. Dear learners, it is called noun clause or nominal clause. Here we can see here adjective clause, or relative, adjective clause or relative clause. Another is adverbial clause. Dear learners, I hope understood it. Subordinate clause or dependent clause is classified into three. One is called noun clause or nominal clause, adjective clause or relative clause, and adverbial clause. Dear learners, now I will give you some examples on these. The noun clause is the clause which works as noun. Noun clause is a clause which works as a noun. And relative clause is the clause which works as relative or adjective. An adverbial clause is a clause which will work in adjective. Adverb. Dear learners, I will make you understand this. I hope you have understood the classifications and the principal clause. Now I am going to repeat it, and next day I will try to give you more examples on noun clause, adjective clause, and adverbial clause. Now I'm going to repeat it. The clause is classified into three. At first, I'm going to tell you that clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. Clause is a unit of sentence with a finite verb and a subject. And clause is classified into three: the principal clause, subordinate clause, or coordinated clause. Sometimes people say the principal clause to main clause or a dependent clause. In class, subordinate clause is also called dependent clause. Dear learners, Principal clause is the clause which can express its meaning alone clearly. It's called principal clause or main clause or independent clause. And subordinate clause or dependent clause is the clause which cannot express its meaning without depending another clause. Without depending on another clause. So it is called subordinate or dependent clause. So coordinating clause is nothing but independent clause added with coordinative conjunction. And subordinate clause is classified into three. What is called noun clause or nominal clause, it's called adjective clause or relative clause, and adverbial clause. So I hope it is clear to you. The noun clause will work as a noun, and adjective clause will work in an adjective, and adverbial clause will work as an adverb. Dear learners, I hope all of you have understood clearly. So for your more clarifications, you should read more and more. And if you have any problems, then send your message in our message comments box. And I will try to make it or clear it to you. Dear learners, I want to conclude here. The next day I will try to classify it or discuss the nominal clause, relative clause, and adverbial clause. Bye.